So, if you ever see them in your local pet or grocery store, remember they were developed by a now very successful musician, Stephen Wilson Jr. It's so weird. This guy's
I buy the cheap imitation ones, those the name brand
right,
ones.
yeah, exactly. You don't want to pay that
Not for my dog, for
pedigree
me.
money.
Um,
Yeah, you're like, I won't taste the food, but the fucking dental treats, I love them.
oh, hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Audiophiles. My name is John. His name is Andy. Whenever dark has fallen, you know the spirit of the party starts to come alive until the day is dawning. You can throw out all your blues and hit the city lights. More of that later. But first, we have a track to listen to, selected by Andy. Andy, what have you got for us today?
Sure, yeah. Without any real explanation before we started hitting record on this, I had mentioned to John really quickly, like this is going to be a pretty brief episode, and that's because it's going to be devoted to an artist we've covered before and an EP by that artist that we've already covered before, and it's of a song that you've already heard before, but it is their iteration of it. So with all those clues, let me divulge. We're going to be dipping back into the waters of Stephen Wilson Jr., who we had listened to his cover of Something in the Way by Nirvana.
Yeah.
And I had promised you that we would be checking out more off of this, and here we are. We are going to get into some of his original works once we're wrapped up this episode, further down the line, of course. But I want you to check out his cover of the Smashing Pumpkins song Tonight, Tonight. So, go off, give it a listen, see what he does with the song and what he brings to the table, and come back and let us know if you enjoyed it and what your thoughts were.
Okie like the photo. Could come in fairly soon with the old vocals. So, really nice start. Plus sort of drum fill with a plum at the start, sort of gives it an opening, almost like curtains parted on a stage. And then we get a mixture of his, like, I think it's acoustic guitar has that kind of more nylon-y sound, with that sort of riff from the original, more steely, that chicka-ching. And it always sounds to me like clashing of swords in some sort of old school film. Yeah, Errol Flynn and Basil Rathbone on the ramparts of the castle. And then strings on top. I don't know if they're synthesized or not, but they sound good. So for the purposes of this, I shall treat them as if they were real. So yeah, you get this cello sound sort of doing the main sort of melody start, and then in come his violin cohorts, and there's this sweeping sound, and then that main melody that's really familiar. Sounds great. It's a fairly sort of galloping pace to it. Let's see how it progresses.
Time is never time at all. You can never ever leave without leaving a piece of youth. And our lives feel. Believe, believe in me. Believe that life can change, that you're not stuck in vain. We're not the same, we're different. Tonight, 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 so bright. Tonight, tonight, tonight.
Yeah, I just well, I got a chance. So yeah, in comes Mr. Wilson's voice. He has that quality about him. I think I mentioned it in the last reaction video when we see him performing. His mouth didn't really open very much. I think someone put a comment in that his jaw had been broken many times during his early boxing career, which is probably a good reason to take up the guitar. But that would explain things if that were true. So he does have a different way of delivering, and without seeing him visually, you can hear it, sort of slightly sort of clenched or closed mouth delivery. But I like it. I have often complained in the past that some of the songs I hear, I couldn't pick the vocalists out of a lineup because it sounds so similar. And there are certain sounds of certain periods which are really, really similar vocally. People sort of pick up on that and run with it. And I think after two songs, two exposures to Mr. Wilson's voice, I like it, and I think I could confidently identify it if it was played to me again. Yeah, so he has that quality about him, which is something I'd look for. Is that nice baritone voice, and he's delivering and singing here. He's not really going for it at all. There's no strain or urgency to his voice, and it has. I know from the past, Andy was saying he didn't really take up music professionally, or let it break into. It must have been in his late 30s or early 40s. So he has a maturity to his voice. There's a lovely baritone, and there's a sound of experience, and there's a sound of almost pain, which is a very different delivery to Billy Corrigan from the original. So it gives it a slightly different edge to it. Yeah, I like it. And there's also the very, I mean, I hear it. I don't know if it's real or not. There's a slight tinge of country to his voice as well. Like it's really suited for country songs. So he brings that along with him into this. Yeah.
And you know you're never sure, but you're sure you could be right if you held yourself up to the light. And
I'm sorry, just bring that back up just a little bit, very briefly. I'm sure I could hear somebody sort of shouting or something way down in the background.
you're never sure, but you're sure you could be right if you held yourself up to the light.
The beats are much
embers never fade in your city by the lake, the place where you were born. Believe, believe in me. Believe, believe in the resolute urgency of now. And if you believe there's not a chance tonight, 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 tonight.
drums are picking up.
Tonight, tonight, tonight.
That's interesting. Very decent version of it. I really like hearing his voice and him singing it. I am undecided whether having all those string arrangements in there, there's a facsimile of the original, was a good idea or not. I've got an inkling that this is one of his first um, recordings. If it is, then perhaps making it sound similar to the original was probably a good idea in terms of recognition and saleability and people like latching on to. Yeah, you've only then got to sort of like buy into his voice and his sound. But I think the Nirvana cover where he sort of went at it with the guitar and had his own sort of rawness to it was really nice. And I think he could have done so. There wasn't, the thing that stood out for me the most in this was the drumming and his voice, and then the strings, and then the guitar sort of going along afterwards. It was a bit of a, not an afterthought, but it was definitely sort of lower in the priority. So perhaps a sort of an acoustic version of this would have been interesting. But, you know, it is certainly a decent version of it. I wouldn't turn it off if it was on, but I wouldn't reach for it if the original was available either. So kind of that's good. I enjoyed it definitely. There's nothing wrong with it. But not enough of a difference to the original, apart from perhaps his voice, to really make you sort of look at it through a different lens, which is one of the things I think I look for in a cover version. But we need to find out more. So let's go back and chop it up with Andy.
All right, John. So you have returned from listening to Tonight by Stephen Wilson Jr. What say you?
Okay. So I think I'll start off by just having a quick my thoughts about the original
Of
before we
course,
get
yeah.
into it. So there's been loads written about this being Corrigan's sort of pep talk to his inner self, both present day and a child, and leaving behind his abusive past. I know as the second track on Dawn to Dusk, following the instrumental overture of the title track.
Mhm.
On the 3-disc vinyl version, which I don't sadly have because it costs a fucking arm and a
Yeah, I would
leg,
imagine.
it's separated into dawn, tea time, dusk, twilight, and midnight starlight, which feels very J.M. Barrie. They're just the titles and quite English as well. And I feel that this song in the original album readies the listener for what is to come. It's kind of a clearing of the palette of the past and opening up to possibilities. And it really is tonight in various, but one of the aspects is, you know, of what's to come within this experience. And it is hope, and it is asking the audience to believe in him as much. And it's implicit that this is reciprocated as well and binding both parties together. A bit like asking the audience to believe in fairies for Tinkerbell. There's lots of Peter Pan stuff going on here. I don't know why, but it just always makes you think of that. That aside from what I think about it, on with Stephen's cover. So it opens with this very light strum of the guitar and a tiny soup song of keyboards before this galloping drum flourish opens a song like stage curtains parting. And again, it's the setting of the scene, like I said, previously as well. We have that patented guitar riff, which to my mind sounds like, I mean, you can argue it sounds like it's borrowed a bit from Again, not the first time I've said this. Love Will Tear Us Apart by Joy Division, but it also reminds me of swords clashing, like in an old school fight. You know, Errol Flynn and Basil Rathbone in tights, trading parries up and down the ramparts of a castle. Mind the candelabra. Um, and then, as Superchunk would say, here's where the strings come in. So a sort of a woebegone cello sound takes the main melody, flanked by other violins coming in. It may well be synthesized, these strings, but for the purposes of this, they sound real enough, so I will treat them as such and call them that. It certainly isn't as full as the 30-piece original
Yeah.
orchestral version, but it does a good job in what it does. The strumming guitar we hear, so the two guitar sounds, that sort of quite steel sounding metallic, but the other one sounds more nylon-y, for want of a better word, but you know what I mean.
Kind of.
And that's what I remember from Stephen's previous video that I watched. And this continues along through that sort of familiar swirl and twizzle of the strings with that sort of melody. And then he enters with that existential opening line, time is never time at all. Um, as the great man said, time is an illusion, lunchtime doubly so. Um, and as a subjective construct, its meaning differs, you know, a conduit for change, a measurement of decay or growth, or a linear narrative. It's a really interesting opening line to a song, and it's a sign of his brilliance of writing lyrics, I think. His voice, Mr. Wilson's voice, has that same quality as before. And I remember someone in the comments section of the last episode wrote that he had broken his jaw multiple times from boxing. And I remember that you said that him and I think his brother, his dad, got him into boxing at a young age. So it sounds like it could be true.
Yeah.
And if it is, then it sounds also like a very good reason for taking up the guitar. Um,
Yeah. Doesn't have the defensive skills.
yeah, if you're getting your jaw broken more than once, it's a big sign that, you know, reconsider.
Yeah.
Um, oh, that just flashed up to me something. I once had an audiobook which was written by one of the two Coen brothers. I think it's Ethan, but I can't remember. And he did lots of short stories, and I had an audiobook of them. And one of the short stories was narrated by Matt Dillon, and he was a boxer. And his coach was saying, you know, it's a real cerebral thing, kid, you know, and you're a thinker, but you keep getting knocked out. The thing is, you think too much. It goes on. It's really funny. Let's just remind me of that. Anyway, so yeah, if true, it does explain his kind of clenched mouth approach to the vocals. Now, here, without seeing him, just listening, you can definitely hear that there is something about his delivery that in that sort of slightly closed mouth way.
Yeah.
But I really like this. I've often complained about not being able to pick out some singers' voices out of a lineup because they all sound the same. And I feel after being exposed to these brace of songs from him that I would be able to recognize
Yeah.
Stephen Wilson's vocals, which I really like. There's that gentle baritone with a seasoning of country, just a touch, and it
Yes.
adds a different dimension to the narrative. From the point of view of the person singing, there's more of a tired experience to this. And I know you said he sort of came into music, well, not into music, but into recording his music fairly late in his life comparatively. And that adds a sort of seasoning to it as well. We then get secondary vocals coming in supporting as he sings Believe, Believe, and then the strings return to proliferate the chorus. Life can change it, you're stuck in vain, we're not the same, we're different tonight, etc. And it's all very powerful and to be fair, it's not a huge difference from the original in the way it's done. So we then go to the second verse, and down in the mix, I can hear it sounds like some sort of hollering or whooping
Yeah.
or general hubbub. It sounds like it was recorded in an off license on a Friday night. Definitely sounds like someone's preloaded on Lambrini before going out. the beat also itself at this point takes on a cheerier countenance. It's almost like popping away. And I'm not sure if I detected some hand claps perhaps or not, but it's definitely like a double beat going on. Um, and then we go back into the chorus. And at this point, the drums really take over, and there's several drum fills in this activity, and they're like gunshots going off into the darkness, which leads us to the climax of the song. Um, and they're like my favorite lyrics actually of the whole song, where it says about crucify the insincere
Yeah.
tonight and make things right and offer up the night and all the indescribable moments of your life, which is a great line. And then he finishes with believe in me as I believe in you, which is again really powerful, and you can take it in like different ways as well, whether he's talking to his child himself or to the person listening or whatever. um yeah, it's the most impactful line in the whole song for me. And he just slows down as he sings that line, believe in me as I believe in you, which makes it more poignant as well. And then he delivers these final tranche of tonight's, and there's a few more sort of twirls of the guitar, and the song slowly finishes. um, so yeah, this is an interesting version. Um, I think that the personality behind his voice made the difference to this song.
Hmm.
I think that in terms of the impact for me, I'd say well, his voice, then the drums, then the sort of strings, and then the guitar. Really, it didn't come through as much as it did. Like obviously the something in the way it's like really powerful the way he did it. And I would have, I'm not sure, but I'd have liked perhaps to just hear him with the guitar again. I understand what he did. And was this his debut or one of his first?
I think this EP came out after his first album, but it was very close,
Yeah, yeah.
if
So
not.
he's not
So
exactly an established artist at this point. So I
no,
understand. Doing songs that you really love is great. And perhaps doing it in a way that brings people into listening to you, I think. But I'm not sure, it's easy for me to say, if I'd have included the strings and all that. I mean, I think just like a pared down version of this song with him and guitar would have been just as powerful as something as well, you know.
yeah,
So I really enjoyed it. I think mostly because of his voice. I'm not sure about the arrangement. That's just me being picky. I would definitely wouldn't switch this off if it was on, but I wouldn't reach for it either if the original was available, if you know what I mean.
yeah,
So
between the two, yeah,
yeah, I think I don't think the only thing he brought different was like his perspective from his voice, which I think is he's a real asset to him. Um, so yeah, but it was really, I mean, very enjoyable and decent effort.
yeah. Excellent, man. Well, I'm glad you overall enjoyed the listen.
Yeah, yeah.
I would lean a little bit more into the not only his voice adding a bit of a a line in the sand between it and the original, but the reverby acoustic guitar that is also, I think his voice is 1A and the sound of his guitar is 1B on the things that are distinctly his. And that I can hear pretty plainly the difference between the way he plays his guitar in this track versus the original as well. I don't disagree. I would be intrigued at the very least, I'll say that, to hear what this would have sounded like without the string arrangements. But I bet you either him or someone close to him had him second guessing whether or not to omit those because they're so integral to the enterprise that is the Tonight Tonight track by the Smashing Pumpkins. So you're kind of flirting with, do I fuck up and derail this whole thing by removing them, or do I truly make them my own by doing the same thing?
That's why I mentioned I thought it was his debut or close to it. Because if you're an established artist, the people who already come along with you that far, they'll go with it. But if you're fairly newish, I think this is a way of getting people to listen to it. And
Yeah,
if it's using that technique, then it brings them along. That's fair enough, you know.
yeah, yeah. I will agree with you though that I think his voice is very distinct and his own, and it is one of the things that I find
Yeah.
the most appealing about listening to him perform and listening to his music. So, I won't. I'll try not to rehash as much stuff that we covered in the last one. I'm sure there'll be bits and pieces here and there, which is what's going to lend to this episode's brevity. But Steven Wilson Jr. is an American country and rock singer, guitarist, and songwriter from Seymour, Indiana, who's now based in Nashville, Tennessee. In our previous video, we discussed how before diving back into his first love of writing, producing, and performing music, Wilson settled into a stable job in the research and development department over at Mars Food Science Lab. Specifically, because we had talked about this, that it was such a big company and there's so much under the that umbrella. He worked for Pedigree. Do you guys have Pedigree brand over there? I wasn't sure. Okay, yeah, yeah.
So, can I just interject? 'Cause
Of
I don't think
course.
I did last time. So, when I was at school, we had a thing, business studies, O level, GCSE, whatever you want to call it. I mean, it can't have been that in depth because you're supposed to do it in 2 years. We did it in 1 year, and I only turned up for 3 lessons, and I got a pass. So, but apart, um, but one of the things was, some of the kids at our school had dads who were in business, and one of them ran the Pedigree pet food site at Peterborough. And we went across and looked, and we went in and we got sat down and given the Mars corporate video. At the time, Mars was the biggest privately owned company in the world. And
Yeah.
they gave all this stuff about it, and it was all very fascinating. And then we got to go around the actual factory, and they had, this is 1987, and they had a robot in the factory floor that sort of ran on not tram lines, but there was metallic strips on the floor
Yeah.
that it went round and collected and did stuff, and that was all space age and amazing.
Yeah.
And then they had a room which we weren't allowed to go into, which had the people in there testing, because apparently you had to have human people taste and test the dog food
Yes, I have
by
seen
law.
that, and I think kind of Letterman or someone had someone years and years ago when I was young on who was like a professional food taste tester, and Letterman, because of the absurdity, had him test like different foods and like tell us what his palate was going through as it was it's so funny. Yeah, weird stuff. I would hate to have that job. But while working for Mars and Pedigree, he developed a wildly successful product that was his brainchild called the Pedigree Dentastix Fresh, a popular
I do
dog
know
dental
them.
chew. So, if you ever see them in your local pet or grocery store, remember they were developed by a now very successful musician, Stephen Wilson Jr. It's so weird. These guys,
I buy the cheap imitation ones, those are own brand
right?
ones.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to pay that
Not for my
money
dog, for
Pedigree
me.
money.
Um,
Yeah, you're like, I won't taste the food, but the fucking dental treats, I love them.
oh,
So, it's just interesting because as you alluded to earlier, you mentioned the boxer thing. It's like what a renaissance man, like musician,
yeah,
boxer,
interesting.
food scientist. It's really interesting shit. But after leaving his white collar job with Mars, Wilson returned to pursuing his passion in the music industry and has now released one full length studio album and two EPs and several singles. In 2024, Wilson Jr.'s career skyrocketed with his late night television debut on NBC's Late Night with Seth Meyers, followed by performances on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert and later with Jules Holland. Later in the fall of 2024, CBS News' Jeff Glor traveled to Nashville for Wilson Jr.'s first major television interview, which was followed by a performance of three songs on CBS Saturday morning. In early 2025, Rolling Stone featured Wilson Jr. in their Future of Music print, including him in their Future 25 lists of artists who have them excited for the future. In a wide ranging profile, Rolling Stone's Joseph Huddock called him one of country music's most electrifying new artists. In our previous episode, dedicated to his cover of Something in the Way, um, we discussed the EP on which this cover of Tonight Tonight features, titled Blankets, released last year in 2025. So I never even put this together, which is almost like I'm ashamed to admit. But what's another, term for blankets? Covers. So it's an interesting name for an EP devoted to just cover songs without just calling it covers. And as you saw probably on the thumbnail, it's that closet that's just ready to spew stacked blankets out of it, which is really interesting. Uh,
And an interesting
but
portrait on the wall
yeah, yeah, I saw that too. It just,
of the
what was,
spaceman.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was really weird. But like right next to the closet or whatever on the wall, yeah. Um, the EP consists of some of Wilson's favorite tracks, including songs by Nirvana, Temple of the Dog, the Postal Service, and the Smashing Pumpkins. When he also does, it's not on this, but he does an incredible, if you really like his voice and he gets into it. Like it's not this sort of warm calm that he has in in this song, or the cold calm that he had in the Nirvana one, but it's Stand By Me, which is a really beautiful cover of it. So it's definitely worth checking out. I dare not bring three covers in a row from this guy when he's got good original material out there, but it's definitely worth checking out if you enjoyed this episode, or the song, I should say. When interviewed by Rolling Stone, Wilson was asked about this interesting decision to create the EP, and this is how he responded. I'm very much an indie rock kid at heart, but I'm a country songwriter. I write songs from a rural perspective and a blue collar perspective. He also noted that his iterations of the tracks are intentionally lush and denser than the originals. So let's jump into these lyrics. Time is never time at all. You can never ever leave without leaving a piece of youth. And our lives are forever changed. We will never be the same. The more you change, the less you feel. Believe, believe in me. Believe, believe that life can change, that you're not stuck in vain. We're not the same. We're different tonight, 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 so bright, tonight, tonight. And you know you're never sure, but you're sure you could be right if you held yourself up to the light. And the embers never fade in your city by the lake, the place where you were born, which I definitely think is an allusion to Chicago, which is, I think, Corgan's hometown, if I'm not mistaken. Believe, believe in me, believe, believe in the resolute urgency of now. And if you believe there's not a chance, tonight, 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 so bright, tonight, tonight, we'll crucify the insincere tonight, tonight. We'll make things right. We'll feel it all tonight, tonight. We'll find a way to offer up the night, tonight. The indescribable moments of your life, tonight. The impossible is possible, tonight, tonight. Believe in me as I believe in you, tonight, 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 tonight. And I gotta say, man, I always really enjoyed this song and appreciated it on what was a real. I mean, I remember when that Melancholy first came out, it was like, wow. But I was also of an age where like songs like, what was it, Zero and Bullet with Butterfly Wings, give me that angsty teenage non. And I'll tell you, I'd still love those songs because I think they're good, and also because of the nostalgia behind them. This is the best song on the album, if you ask me personally. I just think that the lyricism, the vulnerability of Corgan, and as you say, to like come out of the gate with this on the one disc is kind of a bold declaration. And I think the older you get, the more, I mean, probably until you plateau, but as you get older, the meaning of the song and the sentiment behind it becomes more and more relatable and striking, as to where a 12 or 13-year-old me could not connect with this reflective looking back. Because if I did that at 13, I'd be like, man, I remember how times were tough when I was 4 trying to pilfer the cookie jar. But when you're 30 and you're looking back at all this, it hits a whole lot different. So yeah, I liked it then, but I've grown to absolutely love this track. Glad you pointed out some of those observations about the original before we started getting into your true reaction to this iteration of it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think I'll talk to you off camera about this. There's a guy in a record shop nearby who, for a couple of years, had brandished his copy of Simon's Dream and boasting how it's worth 300 quid. And then imagine my delight last year when they reissued it and I picked it up for 20 20 odd quid. Um,
Is that you
yeah.
saying you can't wait for them to reissue this so you can get it at a more reasonable price than
Well, yeah, that's definitely it. But I revisited, Smashing Pumpkins output, and I have to say, it's quite hard to listen for me now. As you know, it's quite hard to listen to Siamese Dream. There's a lot of that sort of condensed sound to it, which I think is of its time, and a very youthful sound as well, and that angst and everything, as you say. I think this album is a much more listenable album, and other tracks, 1979 is a great track as well. But I think I'd go along with you and say that this track is the best one on there, and it is evocative and. With the artwork and everything, it does almost feel a little theatrical at the start of the album, like they're setting a play for you or whatever.
yeah,
It doesn't go, they went away from the thing about being a concept album because the songs aren't particularly linked, but it has an overall feel to it. Um, yeah, and I just can't get away from the Jay and Barry stuff. It just pops into my head every time I
yeah,
listen to
yeah.
this song.
And you're
Yeah,
not wrong. I'd never thought about it, but you're certainly not wrong. And even the video for this, I think, is kind of iconic as well. I mean, I love the way it's shot, and I love the stage production value to the aesthetics and everything, and the kind of nods to steampunk and stuff like that throughout it as well. It's all
yeah.
really
I mean,
interesting stuff.
it's amazing how much I've forgotten what the original film's called, but basically it's Voyage to the Moon.
Yeah,
That old French silent film has been used so much in so many. So Air did one as well. But loads of people have used it. It's a great visual, really
yeah,
is.
it is.
And
Absolutely.
yeah,
Well, John, thank you so much for giving this your ears and your
yeah, I
thoughts.
enjoyed it.
Yeah, more importantly. And as promised and mentioned before, but I will reiterate, we'll check out some of Mr. Wilson Jr.'s original stuff later on down the line. But figure this is a nice way to introduce you to him with these couple of songs that I know we're both familiar
Mm,
with to get an idea of what his sound is like and his musical approach and that reverby, twangy acoustic guitar of his is really interesting as well. So thanks so much. I really appreciate you. Guys out there in the listening audience, please let us know what you thought of this version of Tonight by Stephen Wilson Jr. And if you have any suggestions by him of his original materials, please feel free to shout them out down in the comment field below. Also, please like, share, and or subscribe if you haven't done any or all those things. We will forever appreciate it. And hopefully, John and I will catch all y'all in growing numbers on the next installment of the Audio Files. We'll see you later, guys.